L'Jarius Sneed was traded. Finally, we have the information. He was traded to the Tennessee Titans, and they are expected to receive a 2025 third-round pick in addition to a 2024 seventh-round pick swap, while Sneed will sign a new contract. Trade is pending physical for Sneed, which he passed, and the deal is a 4-year deal worth $76 million, including $55 million guaranteed. Got paid. That's $19 million in average annual value, which makes Sneed the sixth highest paid corner in the NFL. You look at some of the highest paid corners, and I'll give you guys some names here. You got Jair Alexander making a lot of money, Denzel Ward, Jalen Ramsey, and now L'Jarius Sneed's up there. And around him is Marshawn Lattimore, who kind of restructured his contract, but still he's up there. Trayvon Diggs, Jalen Johnson. I think he just got 19 per. I think he got 4 for 76. So I think he got kind of a similar deal. I have to double check that, but him and Jalen got essentially kind of a similar contract, which I think is kind of fair. Jalen's really good too. But I'll start with you, Boone. And the question I saw is I saw some of Lions Twitter saying, the Lions, you're paying Carlton Davis 14. You couldn't pay less L'Jarius Sneed a couple more million. Like, what's your kind of thoughts? And we'll go around here. Did the Lions? I'll just ask you straight up. Did the Lions miss out on L'Jarius Sneed?
No, they did not. I thought it was crazy when the trade or the trade and everything dropped on Twitter. The backlash again, and we had this conversation, fellas, and this is what really gets me. We have this conversation every couple of weeks about Brad Holmes, and we have this conversation every couple of weeks after that with Brad Holmes, to where people go at him, and the trade deadline, the Danielle Hunter thing, now the L'Jarius Sneed thing, where people, they just want to go, they want to find something with Brad Holmes to where it's he did something wrong. He did something wrong here. To me, and fellas, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. To me, this whole L'Jarius Sneed thing, and the people, if there's Lions fans that are still mad at not getting L'Jarius Sneed, you are stuck, absolutely stuck in this SOL, same old Lions losing era of football. Absolutely stuck, and you can never cross it through your head that Brad Holmes genuinely knows what he's doing with this football team and the organization, and with the money and with the picks and everything that comes with it. He actually knows what he's doing. Like, it is actually a competent GM who is not going to go out there and chase down big names, big deals, big trades, big numbers, and he's going to be dead serious and set on this. We're building the team, and we're going to go win a Super Bowl doing it. And I'm not going to chase. I'm not going to listen to the Twitter GMs. I'm not going to listen to the YouTube GMs, as maybe we are, and all these different names. And I'm going to go out there and do what a real GM does, what legit GMs in the league do. And there was people out there, to be honest, that were like really going at Brad Holmes, saying, well, if you're not going to pay a guy like L'Jarius Sneed money, why would we trust that you're going to pay our own guys money? Why would you trust that? Why do you think he's going to spend money here and there? What are we talking about? Like, genuinely. Like, it's crazy to me. Like, $20 million for a corner, and you just went and got Carlton Davis. Yeah, it's $14 million. Guess what? They did a little bit of a restructure with this contract. He's only has 1 year left on his deal, by the way, as well, on top of that. And you can extend him for cheaper, probably a higher level, not higher level, but a guy that's almost up there, to where you can extend for some way cheaper money and bring in a secondary corner and draft a corner. It's just, to me, it's idiotic at this point to sit here and be like, well, Brad Holmes should have brought him in. That was over when you got Carlton Davis. That was over. Yeah, I could be completely wrong with this, fellas, but that's where I stand on it. There was no reason for you to be mad at Brad Holmes for the third, fourth, fifth time this season, when he keeps proving to you what plan. And he tells people straight up, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to do this. And then when it doesn't happen, you get mad and say, oh, Brad's a terrible GM. Get out of here, dude. He's literally the best in the league. Go look at GM rankings around the NFL. Every single franchise fan base will put Brad Holmes in the top 5. The only people who complain about Brad Holmes are SOL fans and fans that lose it. It's like, it is. That's the craziest part. Like, if you're a Lions fan and you're complaining about Brad Holmes at this point, after you just watched the Lions damn near enter the Super Bowl, they're up 17, and then you're complaining about the moves that he's making, and people will be like, well, contenders, they make trades. Let's be real here. If the San Francisco 49ers or Philadelphia Eagles made that trade for Carlton Davis, everyone and their mom would be like, well, why can't Brad do that? Why can't Brad do that? If you're looking at this L'Jarius Sneed situation,
He went to the Tennessee fucking Titans. His career is going to die. There's obviously Brad's not going to give up more draft assets after he did that for Carlton Davis. So at least be happy that the Kansas City Chiefs didn't send him to Philadelphia, didn't send him to San Francisco. He went to the Tennessee Titans. What are we complaining about? The Lions improved. Brad still has money. At the end of the day, you don't want Brad going out spending all this money, and then halfway through the season, there's an injury, and now he needs to go make a move at the trade deadline, and he doesn't have any money. So it's one of those things where it's just like, stop bitching. Just look at where the Lions are at and just stop bitching.
Lucas going off today. Although,
I do see some people.
The contracts didn't differ too much, the trade wasn't asking for too much for the Titans. I still don't mind it. Brad's always been this way. He would rather have depth at the corner position than, just one guy taking the whole thing. And what else was I about to say? And like I said, I mean, either way, I'm sorry. My notes are all fucked up. I was trying to say it, but I would way rather have Carlton Davis, Amik Robinson, and then draft corners, and then continue to build up depth at the position, then just throw all this money at Sneed and then kind of have to figure it out after the fact. When we look at last year, one of the biggest problems has been our cornerbacks. One cornerback isn't going to go out there and fix that. You need depth at that position, and giving one guy all that money does nothing.
Yeah.
And
this is
real quick, and before Jeff, because this Adam is like making my point. He's like, everyone praised the Carlton move. Everyone praised the Zeitler move. So why everyone praises the DJ Reader move? So why are people acting like Brad isn't making moves because L'Jarius Sneed went to the Tennessee Titans for a third-round pick? It's egregious.
Exactly.
He's made 3 win-now moves that help this team both offensively and defensively.
Do you know what it is, Lucas? I can answer it for you real quick. There's a lot of people out there who just look at the names and big name. Oh, big name. Oh, it's like when you go to a zoo and you see the lion and you're like, oh my gosh, a lion. Like, no, dude, there's flamingos that are cool too, buddy. What are we doing here? Like there's good moves you can make that are good that help your football team. Just because of L'Jarius Sneed, who's an all-pro player, you don't need him on your team just so you can say I have L'Jarius Sneed on my football team. That doesn't win you a Super Bowl just because you have him. Just because Daniil Hunter signs with you, it makes you a little bit, it makes you better. Just because it's a name doesn't mean you need to do it. A Chase Young at the trade deadline, just because it's his name doesn't mean you need to have him on your football team. That's where I'm at with it. It just because let's not go at Brad Holmes for not doing it just because you wanted a big name on this football team.
So okay, so
Jeff's gonna be on the other side here. I see. How
no. So I was just listening. I was just listening to the fellas. I've been talking about we've been talking about the L'Jarius Sneed stuff. So my opinion's kind of already out there. I didn't think this is something Brad was going to do, and none of us really did. We talked about it as a possibility. I just didn't think it was in Brad's DNA right now at this point to go and acquire L'Jarius Sneed, give up draft capital, and make him one of the highest paid corners with 55 plus or 55 million guaranteed. I just didn't think he'd do it. I'll say this: 2 things. One, I don't mind that people criticize Brad because I've done that. And I don't think, although I was wrong about the Chase Young stuff, because Chase Young was the wrong player. Not that they needed a pass rusher, because you saw in the 49ers game they did. Maybe Chase Young wasn't the answer. But I don't think he's absolved from criticism either. If you get where guys are coming from, I don't mind if people complain. I just don't like the complaining after every single move. And I'm not saying that the chat does this. I see it really on just Twitter. And it's just, I go on Twitter. I'm like, who's complaining? We'll check it out. This, I don't mind as much because I'll say this. Wanting Sneed, I don't think is a bad thing. Because, again, if you look at the money, I wouldn't do it, but the Lions could have done it. So I'm not saying, if they would have done it, would we all... Okay, let's just say this. I'll ask you guys. If Brad Holmes got L'Jarius Sneed, what would you guys be saying?
We had this conversation a month ago. All of us agreed that we wouldn't be mad if we got L'Jarius Sneed.
Exactly.
But the fact is when you don't get him, that doesn't mean Brad messed up. That doesn't mean that L'Jarius Sneed, to Adam, he's not a name. He made plays in the Super Bowl. He has made plays, but you don't. It's not like if you don't get him, it's the end of the world. You still are going to have a chance to go win a Super Bowl with Carlton Davis and some rookies, Amik Robinson.
So
I think it would be a different situation if they didn't address the corner position at all, and they just, they didn't get Sneed, and they didn't already have Carlton Davis, they didn't have Amik Robinson, Robinson. they addressed the position. They got their guys there. That's the biggest thing.
And Lucas, I think this to me, this signals Brad feels confident. Not saying that he's only going to build through the draft. It's what he believes in. But this tells me, like, L'Jarius Sneed, he's one of the best corners. No denying that. He knew he was going to cost a fortune. I just think this tells me and solidifies what we already believe with Brad, which is he's like, hey, I'll go out and find a L'Jarius Sneed. Like, I think I can draft a corner, have him on a rookie deal, and kind of do what the Chiefs do, right? Like, look at what the Chiefs have been doing. Like, L'Jarius, Tyreek, like you draft players that are just excellent at their position. And then when it's time to pay them, it's like, we're good. We'll just, we'll re-sign people that matter more, and then we'll draft a replacement. And although it's another one, I think it's a ballsy thing to do. But if you believe in your process for the NFL draft, like Brad Holmes has shown us, I don't hate it. Like, if Brad has that, we'll see. We'll revisit this. And if they can't figure out the cornerback position in 2 years, maybe we'll reflect on this moment. But until he's nailed. I mean, I know it's kind of, we keep saying it, but he's nailed the draft. So I'm not going to say, Brad fumbled this one. No, I don't think he did. We'll see. No. And I think Brad's plan, as you could probably predict, is he's going to draft a corner, and in the first 2 rounds, and we'll see what kind of player that is. Maybe Max Melton comes in. He's excellent in year 1. Who knows?
Yeah.
So I don't want to overreact to it. I'm not mad. I don't mind people for saying, oh, they missed on Sneed. I would have liked him. I just look at it differently. And I think this tells us, like I said earlier, Brad Holmes, he feels like he can go find these types of players in the draft, keep them, or trade them away. And by the way, I see this comment, and because it is true, right? The Chiefs are a team to do that because they know they have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. But I'm just thinking off Brett Veach's approach with the draft. I'm not saying that not doing this, you'll result in a Super Bowl, because that is yet to be determined. But my point is, GMs feel like we don't need to pay these types of players. Number one, we can't afford them. But number two, they're confident in what they can do in the draft. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that this not signing Sneed will result in the Super Bowl. But Brad, that's the type of GM Brad is.
Yeah, and one other thing, the thing that Adam didn't mention too, which is not a knock on what his comment is, but they also have the best defensive coordinator in all of football. So you look at what L'Jarius Sneed is asking for right now. When I say all of this, I'm not saying that L'Jarius Sneed is a bad player, but he is exiting from Steve Spagnuolo's system. He does not have Trent McDuffie on the other side of him, and he does not have Mike Edwards behind him. So he's going to be asking to get top dollar money when he's arguably coming off the best season of his career. And I could see him, again, not a bad player, but I think it's hard for him to replicate what he did in Kansas City last year, especially with no Trent McDuffie, because you can make an argument that Trent McDuffie was the best corner they had on their team last year. Now, if you want to agree with that or not, go ahead. So you're now asking to pay high money for a player that's potentially to drop off, or to Jeff's point, take Max Melton in the second round, and now you have a complete corner room because you have depth. Which one is it? Because I don't think, I'm like Jeff said, there's times to critique Brad Holmes, but in my opinion, this is not one of them. Like, I'm not going to be a Brad Holmes slappy all the time, but to criticize him after this, when you look at the value of the player, the situation where he could potentially drop off a little bit, it just does not make sense to me when people are up in arms about this whole situation.
And I want to throw this out there too, this comment. Shout out to Eduardo too. Very, very valued listener. He said, so Lucas and Booner are telling us to blindly trust Brad and not question anything. That's not it. That's the complete, like, to me, opposite of it. Like, I get what you're saying there, to where maybe we can't criticize Brad. You can criticize Brad all you want, but to his track record the last 2 or 3 years doing what he's done in Detroit, he's the best GM we've ever had in Detroit. He's the top 5 GM in the NFL right now. I'm not saying blindly trust him, because you don't blindly need to do it. He's already done what he's done the last 2 or 3 years, and has taken a bottom of the barrel team with the Detroit Lions 2 or 3 years ago, and has taken them to a very relevant franchise in the NFL right now that has gone to an NFC championship now, has won their division, and now they need to continue doing that. Yes, and I'm with, this is where I'm at with it. He needs to maintain that, correct? Like, when you get to that point, one of the things as a GM, like Howie Roseman and these guys, you have to maintain that. You can't just do it for a year and then fall off. That's where it's, okay, are these moves right that he's making? Because we've never seen him have this much money in free agency coming off an NFC championship appearance. So maybe, like Jeff said, in 2 years we look back and he can't figure out this corner situation. Maybe this was the bad move and he should have went after Sneed. But as of right now, from what we know of Brad Holmes and what he's told us, how he addresses his football team and the moves that he's going to make, the way he makes them, that's not him to go out there and just go get the number one names in free agency. Because so far, the people are mad at two things in free agency. You didn't get the basically the two top defensive players, Danielle Hunter and L'Jarius Sneed. So everyone went into free agency with the mindset of we want number one and number two. That's just not realistic. That's just not realistic. So what are we? You just went into a mindset with something that's unrealistic, and you were going to get yourself hurt no matter what. Now, to Adam's point, yes, L'Jarius Sneed makes a great. He makes your defense great. Was it realistic? Potentially not, because what do? You pay $20 million for him now, and that's the rest of your free agency money. And I'm sure Brad wants to make more moves this offseason. And you're just done. You're done. You have L'Jarius Sneed. Now you get no more defensive linemen. You get no chance to get an extra safety if that's what you wanted to do. If you wanted to build up the offensive line and get a backup, you can't do that. If you wanted another weapon, can't do that. Now it's just all built off the draft. Brad is doing it in a smart way to where he's saving money. He's going to go out and get the guys you need. I'll ask you guys this: has Brad upgraded this defense? Has the defense got better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That's
DJ Reader and Carlton Davis do that.
And you still have $20+ million left in money. So
don't forget.
I don't see the whole situation to where you're going to sit there and say Brad's done a bad job. Adam's saying you can afford them and they'll help you go to the next level. You afford them and you're cut off there. If a guy gets hurt, you can't go out and get a vet free agent. You're cut off. You're over the cap.
Yeah,
you have $1 million or $2 million left.
Well, let me say this too about the whole L'Jarius. I think people are focusing on the wrong thing. I'm not worried as much about corner as I am this defensive line. I mean, for keeping it a stack. Like I like DJ Reader, but Marcus Davenport, jokes aside, I talked about how there's potential there. Like if we're talking about he's not proven, he ain't a proven 8 to 10 sack guy. No, he's not, and he's dealing with injuries. So if there is a criticism, I think saying Brad, what are you doing with this edge position? That's fair. If L'Jarius Sneed's playing for you and you can't get to the quarterback, you don't have Chris Jones. Like there's a problem. And you don't have the type of defensive line that the Chiefs do. So I'm more concerned about the defensive line. I mean, specifically edge. Like I think there's more things to be worried about than, corner. Right now, I think Brad's going to address corner, but I'm still looking at defensive line, boys. I think that's more of a. If you want to critique them, you could probably say that like, Davenport was your edge signing. Like I think that's fair. But this, it's like you're just wasting air. I mean, what are we doing?